Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass by Frederick Douglass. Publisher's Introduction. Thank you for picking up a copy of the Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass. We have updated this work into modern English so you can understand exactly what Douglass wrote hundreds of years ago. We encourage you to refer to the original writing as you listen this updated work. If you enjoy this book, please share with a friend, leave a positive review on Amazon, and see more updated works at oldbooknew.com. Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass was born into slavery as Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey, near Easton, in Talbot County, Maryland. He wasn't exactly sure when he was born, but he thought it was either 1817 or 1818. When he was a young boy, he was sent to Baltimore to work as a house servant. There, he learned to read and write with help from his master's wife. In 1838, he escaped from slavery and made his way to New York City, where he married Anna Murray, a free black woman he had met in Baltimore. Shortly after, he changed his name to Frederick Douglass. In 1841, he spoke at a Massachusetts Anti-Slavery Society convention in Nantucket and impressed everyone so much that they hired him as an agent. He was such a powerful speaker that many people doubted he had ever been a slave. So he wrote Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass. During the Civil War, he helped recruit black men for the 54th and 55th Massachusetts regiments and always pushed for the freedom of slaves. After the war, he worked hard to secure and protect the rights of freedmen. Later in life, he held various positions, including Secretary of the Santo Domingo Commission, Marshal and Recorder of Deeds for the District of Columbia, and United States Minister to Haiti. He also wrote other autobiographies, My Bondage and My Freedom, and Life and Times of Frederick Douglass, published in 1855 and 1881, respectively. He passed away in 1895. Chapter 1. I was born in Tuckahoe, near Hillsborough, about 12 miles from Easton, in Talbot County, Maryland. I don't really know how old I am because I've never seen any official record of my birth. Most slaves don't know their ages any more than horses do, and most of the slave owners I know prefer to keep it that way. I've never met a slave who could tell me their exact birthday. They usually only know it by seasons or events, like planting time, harvest time, cherry time, spring, or fall. Not knowing my own age made me unhappy even as a kid. The white kids could tell their ages, but I couldn't understand why I wasn't allowed to know mine. I wasn't allowed to ask my master about it either. He thought it was inappropriate and disrespectful for a slave to ask such questions, and that it showed a rebellious attitude. The best guess I have is that I'm between 27 and 28 years old now. I figured this out because I heard my master say that I was about 17 years old sometime in 1835. My mom's name was Harriet Bailey. She was the daughter of Isaac and Betsy Bailey, who were both black and had pretty dark skin. My mom's skin was even darker than my grandma's or grandpa's. My dad was a white man. Everyone who talked about my family agreed on that. There was also a rumor that my master was my dad, but I have no idea if that's true because I wasn't given the chance to find out. My mom and I were separated when I was just a baby, before I even knew her as my mom. In the part of Maryland where I escaped from, it was common to separate kids from their moms really early. Often, before a kid even turns 1, their mom is taken away and sent to work on a farm far away, and the kid is left with an older woman who's too old to work in the fields. I don't know why they do this, unless it's to stop the child from bonding with their mom and to kill the natural love a mom has for her child. That's what always ends up happening. I only saw my mom 4 or 5 times in my life, and those times were really short and always at night. She worked for a guy named Mr. Stewart, who lived about 12 miles away from where I was. She would walk all that way at night just to see me after finishing her day's work. She worked in the fields, and if she wasn't there by sunrise, she'd get whipped unless her master gave her special permission, which almost never happened. If a master did give permission, they were considered a kind master. I don't remember ever seeing my mom during the day. She'd come at night, lie down with me, and help me fall asleep. But she'd be gone before I woke up. We hardly ever talked. She passed away when I was about 7 on one of my master's farms near Lee's Mill. I wasn't allowed to be there when she was sick, when she died, or even at her funeral. She was gone before I even knew what happened. Since I never really got to experience her comforting presence or her care, I felt about the same when I heard she died as I would have if a stranger had passed away. She was taken away so suddenly that she didn't leave me any clue about who my father was. There's a rumor that my master might be my father, but whether that's true or not doesn't really matter for what I'm talking about. The real issue is that slaveholders have set it up and even made it a law that the children of enslaved women are always slaves like their mothers. This is clearly done to satisfy their own desires and make their awful actions both enjoyable and profitable. Because of this sneaky setup, it's not uncommon for a slaveholder to be both the master and the father of his slaves. I know about these situations, and it's worth mentioning that these slaves always have it tougher and face more challenges than others. First off, they're a constant annoyance to their mistress. She's always ready to criticize them. They can hardly ever do anything to make her happy. She's never more satisfied than when she sees them getting whipped, especially if she thinks her husband is giving his mixed-race kids special treatment that he doesn't give to his black slaves. The master often has to sell these slaves to keep his white wife happy. As cruel as it sounds for a man to sell his own kids to slave traders, sometimes it's actually the more humane thing to do. If he doesn't, he not only has to whip them himself, but also watch one white son tie up his brother, who's only a little darker, and whip him. If he even whispers a word of disapproval, it's seen as favoritism, which only makes things worse for both him and the slave he's trying to protect. Every year, tons of slaves are born into this situation. Probably because of this, a well-known Southern politician predicted that slavery would eventually collapse due to population changes. Whether that prediction comes true or not, it's clear that a very different-looking group of people is emerging in the South compared to those originally brought from Africa. Even if their growth doesn't achieve anything else, it challenges the argument that God cursed Ham, so American slavery is justified. If only the direct descendants of Ham are meant to be enslaved according to Scripture, then Southern slavery is going to become unscriptural pretty soon. Thousands of people are born every year, like me, who have white fathers, and those fathers are often their own masters. I've had two masters. My first master's last name was Anthony, but I can't remember his first name. People usually called him Captain Anthony, probably because he used to sail a boat on the Chesapeake Bay. He wasn't considered a wealthy slave owner. He had 2 or 3 farms and about 30 slaves. An overseer managed his farms and slaves. The overseer's name was Plummer. Mr. Plummer was a miserable drunk, cursed a lot, and was a brutal monster. He always carried a cowskin whip and a heavy stick. I've seen him cut and slash the women's heads so badly that even the master would get angry at his cruelty and threaten to whip him if he didn't